Hello, one and all. So today what we're going to do is pretty much pick up from where we left off from our last lesson when we were focusing on different elements of the coast. And what we're going to do now is we're going to start to bring things around to look at an example of an actual location in an actual place. Now, I've said this time and time again, geography is the study of the real world. And because it's the study of the real world, we need to make sure that we've got examples of real world locations. Now, the example that we're going to be looking at within this video is an absolutely stunning piece of coastline. It's a piece of coastline which is down on the south coast in Dorset, and we're going to be focusing primarily on the area around a bay and a headland, as you can see from the picture that we've got here of an area which is called Swanage. So in terms of our success criteria today, what you're going to do is I want you to be able to apply your knowledge to real world coastal landscapes and real world examples, and actually there is going to be a Google form which is linked to this particular video. And then what I would like you to do is to use the knowledge of Swanage and some of the other stuff that we've done throughout this coastal unit to be able to practice some of those questioning and some of those examination skills. So just to get us kicked off then, we're looking at Swanage, and I really want to be able to set the scene. Now, Swanage, famous from a geographical perspective, from this very famous scene, which you can see down here from the field trip in the In-Betweeners. But beyond that, we need to know exactly where it is that Swanage is located. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up Google Earth. This is going to be a really useful exercise for us, because on Google Earth, not only will we be able to see where Swanage is and where it's located, but we will also be able to see a little bit about the landscape and the geology which surrounds it by looking at the aerial footage and having a look at some of the photos of the area. So here we are in Swanage. Okay, you can see that we've got the south coast here, and actually there are some telltale signs that we've got some different geographical features just from looking at this aerial image. So here you can see Swanage Bay. Really clear that we've got some different bands of rock, and we'll have a little look at an overlay of a geological map in order to kind of highlight that in a moment. We've got this headland which you can see here poking out. Okay, it gives us some clues that we've got some more resistant rock, and where we've got some headlands we're probably likely to see some other features along the coastline. If we start to drag Google Earth up towards the east a little bit, what you can see here is that we've got Studland, which is a nature reserve, and we can see that we've got lots and lots of deposition, lots and lots of sand. Okay, and if we go even further over, we can start to see some other geographical features, such as this sand spit that you can see here, which is coming from Bournemouth and Poole Harbour, called Sandbanks. So what we've got is a really stunning area of coast. Just to kind of show you how stunning this area is, let's just click on some of these images. These are images that are coming up at random. You can see we've got some mass movement and some rockfall here along these limestone and chalk lined cliffs. There we go, absolutely stunning headland that you can see here with some of these different stacks, stumps, caves and arches, which I'm going to introduce you to a little bit more in a moment. So if I go back over to our slideshow, okay, this is kind of what we need to know. First thing we need to know really is where Swanage is. So I've just shown it to you on Google Earth, but let's have a look at it in the context of the whole of the United Kingdom. So here's the whole of the UK. And what you can see is we've got this nice little red box here, which is zooming in on a very specific area of the coastline. So this is Dorset on the south coast. It's located, Swanage, principally in a sheltered bay with a nice broad sandy beach. Okay, and we can kind of see that actually if we start to go back to the Google Earth. We've got nice sandy beaches that kind of surround the bays in and around Swanage. Okay, if I zoom in a little bit down here, there we go. You can see the sand and you can see the deposition along this area of the bay. In addition to that, what we've got are lots and lots of different landforms, okay? And we've got landforms of both erosion and landforms of deposition. And this is what makes it a really good example of an area along the coast, because all of those things that we've talked about, such as the erosion of the headland, your caves, your arches, your stacks and your stumps, your spits, your bars and tombolos, they're all here in this very small area. Now, because we've got lots of different landforms, we've got lots of different rock types and lots of different geological structures, okay? And that's really important in forming the formations that we've got along this area of coastline. And that will become a little bit clearer in a minute when we start to look at the geology of the area. So what I want us to do first, though, is I want us to just get to grips with the Dorset coast. I'm going to show you a little video which comes from visitdorset.com. All I want you to do is to have a little look at the video and see how many different coastal features you can spot within it. Now, the coastal features that are going to be popping up in here are all features that we've studied before in previous lessons. Okay, just have a little look and see what you can spot. Okay, so that's a little bit of a cheesy video, but actually it gives us a really, really good picture of this stunning area of coastline. So there should have been loads of features that you managed to pick up, and I've taken some screenshots from the video just to show you. So here we've got some stacks and some stumps. Okay, so here you've got the erosion of a headland. We've got some of these different stacks and stumps, and there's one particular stack that's really, really famous, and that's a stack which is called Old Harry, which sits just off the coast on the Isle of Purbeck, not too far to the east of Swanage Bay. We've also got bays and headlands. This is actually a coastal lagoon, which you can see here, which you'll find out a bit more about when it gets to A level. But we've got alternate bands of hard and soft rock, which are forming the headlands and forming the bays along the coastline. You've even got features of deposition. So we've got features such as sand spits. Here you can see a sand spit, and this sand spit extends into Poole Harbour, and it's actually where a lot of rich and famous live, believe it or not. There's a lot of footballers that live there, and football managers, Harry Redknapp, Jamie Redknapp, just to name a few. I believe actually that this area of Dorset here was actually at one point, according to a Guardian article, the 7th most expensive place to live in the world. And it is really, really stunning, particularly if you catch it on a nice day like in that video there. We've also got coastal bars. So here you can see a coastal bar which is extending out across Poole Harbour, connecting one area of Studland to another, called a barrier beach when you get to it at A level. And we've got lots of coastal arches to go with that headland erosion. Here is a particularly famous arch. This is Durdle Door, which you can see here. Lots of really famous images. One of the things that I'll always remember is seeing Red Bull Air Race planes fly through the centre of Durdle Door. Definitely not for the faint-hearted. And we've also got, right at the end of that video, we've got wave cut platforms where you can see that this cliff line has collapsed, and it's left this wave cut platform, which we've got here, eroding, and that erosion is going to cause that wave cut platform to extend further and further out to the sea. So if we start thinking about this particular area of coastline, well, the reason why we get all of these different features is partly down to the geology. And we've got here primarily a discordant coastline, particularly in the area around Swanage, which forms our example. Now, here I've got an Ordnance Survey map, and you can see that we've got our headland, which is this area here, which is jutting out into the sea. There's Old Harry, apologies, there's Old Harry there, the stack and stump, which you can see even marked on the map that's in front of us. And then on either side of the headland, we've got these two bays. Okay, now this doesn't give us any ideas as to the geology of this particular area, but I could make some pretty good guesses that we've got a discordant coastline where we've got more resistant rock in the middle and less resistant rock on either side of the bay. Now, if we have a little look at this, we can see that this area is dominated by both a discordant coastline, so this area here, which we've just been looking at, where you've got alternate bands of soft rock and hard rock. So the soft rock around Studland Bay, the hard rock around Old Harry and the claves, the arches and the stacks and the stumps, the soft rock around Swanage Bay. If you move further down the coast here, you end up with a concordant coastline. So we've got two coastlines, discordant on this side where my mouse cursor is, and concordant running along there. Okay, remember, discordant coastlines are coastlines where you get alternate bands of hard and soft rock, and a concordant coastline is where you get one straight band of rock. So what we find are lots and lots of different depositional features. Okay, now this is the one that I'm going to give you as the best example of a depositional feature. So you've got Poole Harbour, which is to the north, which is one of the UK's largest natural harbours, and you've got two spits which extend from the mouth of the harbour, and this is Sandbanks, which is at Poole Harbour in Bournemouth, which I've talked about earlier as being that area where you've got lots of multi-million-pound houses, and you can probably get an idea of that just by looking at this picture from above, which is a sand spit. But in Studland, there are also lots of lagoons, salt marshes and sand dunes, which we've talked about before. And because of that, this area is really well known for its wildlife. If I just leave the slide deck for a minute and just go back to Google Earth, if I move up towards that area where we start to see some of these depositional features, you know, we can have a look at some of these images and we can see some of these sand dunes forming, we can see some of these sand spits and some of these salt marsh ecosystems. So let's have a little look at this picture. So here you can see lots and lots of flat land. We've got mud and estuaries starting to build up. Let's have a look at this one as well. Again, I'm picking these pictures at random, but you can see here, yeah, nice big salt flats, really sheltered, features of deposition, great for wildlife, great for birds, great for fish and other habitats. And if we move a little bit further to the north here, we get to Sandbanks, okay, and we get to our sea spit, which is sticking out into Poole Harbour. And let's just have a little look at some pictures of that, just so that we can kind of pick out some of these depositional features within this particular area of the coastline. Apologies, the internet doesn't seem to want to load the pictures and the images today, but they are there. They're available for you to have a little look at in your own time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flick back to our slide deck then, and that gives us an idea of some of the depositional features. I'll show you some pictures here of the sand dunes that we've got in and around Studland. Okay, so you can see lots of recreation opportunities in the sand dunes. You can see that you've got these pioneer species, some marram grass here, building up those yellow dunes before we get to the grey dunes a little bit further back. And that kind of gives us a flavour for some of those features. Now, it's also worth looking at some of the erosional features that we might find along this area of coastline. So we've got here Old Harry, okay, and we've got Old Harry and we've got Old Harry rocks. If I go back to Google Earth, we can start to see some of those features, particularly where we've got this discordant coastline. So if I zoom out a little bit and I find us over here, you can see, hopefully it will load up. If not, I'll go on to a Google image search. I think we'll go on to a Google image search. Let's type in Old Harry rocks. Let's click on images. There we go. And you can see the headland erosion along this area of coast. So all these caves, all of these arches, all of these stacks and stumps built from this chalk cliff that you can see in front of you. Okay, so what I would like you to do now then is I would like you to have a go at taking some of that knowledge and some of that information that I've just given you to see if you can start to apply it, particularly about the depositional features, to a series of activities, okay? Now, there are a series of activities that are up here on this slide, But what I have done is I've created a version of these activities onto a Google form. And what I'd like you to do is to use the knowledge that we've kind of talked through within this video to be able to complete that Google form. Now, the reason why I want you to do it in a Google form is because it's really easy for me to be able to collate all of your answers to the questions and hopefully to be able to provide you with some kind of feedback live as you go, as you're responding to some of those questions. And ultimately what it's going to do is it's going to test some of those skills which you guys are going to need when it comes to your GCSE. Okay, so please check out the Google form, which will be posted into the Google Classroom, and see how you get on. Next lesson, what we'll do is we'll perhaps have a look a bit more about some of the erosional features, and then we'll focus on some questions a little bit later on, which are going to centre around the skills that we need with some of those different erosional features. Thank you very much, one and all.